Call this meeting to order, the August 10th, 2020 Town Board of Black Mountain meeting. If you will stand, pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone here and the folks that are on Zoom and the folks who will be watching us later this week on the TV programming. The only announcements I have is concerning the census of 2020. The state of North Carolina risks losing $7.4 billion in funding. It's very important to make sure that you, your neighbors, your family, and everybody gets registered in the census, and that they do their part to make sure that everybody, all their neighbors, mention it to them, mention it to your family, because it's important when it comes to getting funding from the federal government. Citizen comments.
Mr. Mayor, if we could we add an item, agenda item 8C, for a Riverwalk Greenway update?
Yes, sir. 8C.
Motion to add 8C Riverwalk.
Okay. All in favor? If you will, give a roll call vote.
Maggie, Tuttle, aye. Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now to citizen comments.
I have two citizen comments. One of them I'll save until the next period, as it is for new business. But the other one I'll go ahead and read. It is from, let's see, Peter Frazier, 304 Genesis Circle, says a community of excellence should have a vehicle noise ordinance and it should be enforced, period.
Okay. Thank you. All right. No more citizen comments that I know of. Communication with staff, boards, commissions, and agencies. Nothing. Consent agenda, Josh.
So your consent agenda consists of, I think, three items. 5A is adoption of minutes. These are the minutes of July 13th, 2020 regular session. 5B is a call for a public hearing for Blue Ridge Road Small Area Plan. This is a plan we've been working on for a number of months. It has been through the planning board. It has been vetted through the planning board, as well as we've had numerous opportunities for public input on this plan. And it is, like I said, a call for September's regular meeting. The small area plan really focuses on Blue Ridge Road in that area where the interchange will be coming in from I-40. 5C is a budget amendment to recognize insurance proceeds. We got some damage at our Hemp Hill water tank from vandalism, spray painting, and things of that nature. We ended up fixing that, and we need to do a budget amendment to get the insurance money back into our general fund. That total amount is $23,350.28. That's it for your consent agenda.
One. Do I have a motion to approve consent items A through C as presented?
So moved.
All in favor, roll call, please.
Maggie, Tuttle, aye. Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Okay, passes 5-0. All right. Are you holding the citizen comment?
I'll go ahead and do that one now if you're ready.
Okay, yeah.
So the citizen comment I have is from Marilyn Sabansky. This is in reference to our solid waste ordinance amendment, which is item number 8A. And she states, in the solid waste ordinance up for adoption, I think the definition of household garbage needs work. There are items generally considered garbage that are not subject to putrefaction, such as aluminum foil, non-recyclable plastics, which may be containers not accepted by the recycler, plastic silverware, plastic wrap, for example, drink glasses not recyclable, etc. I think the definition needs to be broadened to include such items, period.
Okay? All right, Josh, unfinished business.
So 7A, this is what we talked about at our July board meeting, the offer to purchase the town property on Flat Creek Road and East Street and the PIN numbers associated with it for $20,000. The Parks and Rec Director, Josh Henderson, and myself did go take a look at this. This is a piece of property that at some point in the future, should this board or other boards choose to use as more of a passive recreational area, we could see it being maybe some picnic tables, benches, things of that nature, depending on what we want that to be. Of course, would depend on the expense that it would cost. This did not go to the Parks and Rec Committee. It was they didn't have a meeting, so we weren't able to do that. As you know, as we talked about last month, there is this is on the Greenway Master Plan as having a section of Greenway up through there, which I think Mr. Alexander did say he would be happy to do an easement through there for that. But as far as using that for a park, I think the possibility is there. The question is when and how much money the town would want to spend on that piece of property.
Any discussion or comments? Well, based on what Josh is saying, it sounds like maybe the town needs to sit on this and for future town usage. And I'd entertain a motion to not accept the offer.
So moved. I would make that motion
Think of a
to not
motion.
accept the offer.
All right, all in favor of not accepting the offer? Roll call, please.
Maggie Tuttle, aye. Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Okay.
And Ron, I think you could tell your client it could always come back. We could always come back, because I think it's just one of these things we do take a look at.
And the evolution.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. I think it's a little bit of an underserved area up there. If it's a place that we could make where folks could come and be by the stream and enjoy a picnic table or something. So I think I'd like to make sure that's not a use that we could. I don't think you could use it for much more than that.
Yeah,
But
it's all floodway.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay, on to new business, Josh.
All right, 8A, I have Jamie Matthews and Tasha Millwood here as well. They're in the other room. They have played an integral part in crafting this ordinance. Essentially, what we've done here, and Attorney Sneed has looked over it, what we've done is really updating it for our use as we bring this in-house. Not sure if you recall or not, but as we went through our discussions about bringing solid waste in-house, we talked about a number of different things, whether that be, we showed the board all those pictures of the amount of brush, the amount of trash that was being set out. So what we've got in here, really, there are a few things I'd like to highlight that may be, definitely are of importance. You can pull out my highlighted copy here. So currently we do bulky item pickup whenever anybody wants it. They call in, they get bulky item pickup. What we have in this ordinance is we've reduced that to one time a month bulky item pickup for everybody in town. If you have more need for bulky item pickup, we have a charge in here for $25 per item after you get your one free bulky item pickup that month. Now when I say your free bulky item pickup, that could be a washer, a dryer, and both together, or couch, whatever it may be. You get that one time pickup. If you need more pickups that month, it will be $25 an item. That's what we have in here. Our brush pickup, we consistently stay behind right now with Waste Pro on our brush pickup. We've had multiple meetings with Waste Pro to try and iron this out. Sometimes I think we've made headway. Sometimes I feel like we haven't never had a discussion. But anyway, currently we have the allowance of 8 cubic yards of brush pickup. Staff wants to reduce that to 4 cubic yards of brush pickup per week, and that is a reduction of half of what we currently pick up.
So where's that reference? It's not in the definitions, is it, or am I missing?
It is not in the definitions. Let me see if I can reference it for you.
Josh, just to clarify, back on bulky items, so if you had a washer, dryer, and a couch all sitting out there at the same time, it could all be picked up free of charge that one time
That's
per
correct.
month? Okay.
The brush pickup I think is on, this isn't page numbered, so it is under Article X or Article 10, and that's H, subsection H, yard waste collection. Over on H2C, town will collect a maximum of 4 cubic yards, which is 6 foot long by 4 foot high by 4 foot wide. And that's by request only, so you still have to call that in to us to let us know that you're on the list.
So can you pay if you needed more?
Well, that's something that we could discuss, but right now we don't have that in there.
Seems like that might be
Yeah,
worth
I think
adding.
it'd be a wise thing
Yeah.
to do. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it'd be consistent if you're doing bulky items at $25 an item
Yeah,
for excessive brush pickup that you
Because
have
we-
associated with it.
we could be the best option for somebody. If you did, you could call and it's gonna get picked up at some, you know.
Basically, we don't want in-town burning, so.
That's right.
So let's, maybe we'll have additions and it could be that it's better to do the additions and come back.
Well,
And vote on it
and
next
that's
month.
fine. What I really think is important is we start educating folks as soon as we can.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
we're in August. We're going to be taking this over, month and a half, a little over. So I want to make sure we do everything we can to let folks know that there are some changes that are taking place, whatever that may be.
Also, there's something in there with yard waste, that type thing. If they have a landscaper doing their yard work,
Then the landscaper needs to take that away.
the landscaper's supposed to be responsible for taking that away.
We don't want to be picking up, tree cutting piles if it's a landscaper cutting those trees. We think they should be able to get rid of
And you
those.
see some.
I see that abused quite a
humongous
bit.
piles out around,
Yeah.
so that's probably something we really need to put a little work on, and what Maggie was mentioning too, that, we pick up for a charge, but we're not gonna pick up everything for a charge, but that has to be taken care of by the landscaper or whatever. I think most of the times they do take care of it, they got shredders and so forth, but every now and then you see that's not the case.
The problem is when we take more, and if the board ends up deciding that we want to do 8, let's say you want to do 4, but you want to charge for an extra 4, we want to make sure that staff can handle it. 'Cause what I don't want to happen is what we're dealing with now, which is people have been on this brush list for a month and still haven't picked it up.
Right.
So the larger the piles get, the longer it takes us to get it, of course.
Right. Yeah, we do have to address that. I think it is a problem right now because it's not really a service. If you can't get it done in 30 days, it's not a service. And if we can't do it, we need to say what we can do
I
and
think
what
that
we can't.
address is right under the one you're talking about,
Yes.
the size of it, right underneath it, D. It says, will not collect yard waste and yard debris from landscape and maintenance projects performed by. I think that needs to be made clear.
Well, in the town's, looking at it from the town's point of view, we've got a lot of folks that have been doing just exactly what Josh is talking about. They've been taking down huge trees and having the price to take down just the trees and stack all the brush and things out on the road because it's a cheaper cost for them. And we just need to make sure that we're doing it for no less than what that tree man who's a professional, has a chipper, would do, instead of us picking the whole thing up for another $25, because that's silly.
And let's see. The other big change is we did that survey, and of course I think we got about 500 responses back from folks. The overwhelming majority of those responses said they use less than 6 bags of trash a week. What we have in here is to limit folks to 6 bags of trash a week, or whatever you can fit into a couple of trash cans. We don't want to I think what's going to hurt us is if we're picking up 10 or 15 trash bins of trash on stops. Because how we have it planned right now, we're going to have to be moving to keep up. So it's if we get lots of trash, we're going to get behind, and we're all going to hear about it, of course. But
So what the guys gonna do, just count and go to 6 and
leave the rest of
leave
it,
7, 8, 9?
and leave a note that says you're over the limit. I mean, I think the majority of folks, and I don't think this is a big issue for. I mean, I don't think that we have a lot of people that are putting out that much trash, but there are some that are. And I think as we talked, I think there's at least some thoughts that folks are bringing in trash from out of city limits and putting it in places. And we don't have any proof of that.
I know that for a fact. I've seen that happen on Camp Ranch Road. And we've got several usual suspects here in this town who have rental houses outside the city limits. And they gather it up because that's part of their rental agreements, and then they bring it to a place that's in the city limits to get and expect the town to come pick it up, and that's wrong.
One thing we might want to think about is that for those that exceed the limit, that I'm wondering about the merit of circling back around. It's not going to happen immediately for pickup, and then charging them for it if we get that in the ordinance, because that's fair to the neighbors. You know, if you got a bunch of garbage out there, it's not your garbage, it's your neighbor's garbage, and they're not, abiding by the ordinance when this is finalized. If we circle back around and pick it up, but charge them for the pickup, let's say $50 or something that's enough to keep them from doing it again. But we'll pick it up.
Some kind of monetary condition
Right.
that serves as a deterrent, so yes.
Okay.
Because we may not be able to pick it up immediately, but if we could send somebody around, in a smaller truck or something, but we have to charge for it. And let's think that through maybe for the final ordinance and get that in there. Because if we just don't pick it up, that's going to create more problems for the neighbors. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Well, and actually not only even the neighbors. If I think about sometimes that happens on North Fork Road, I'm sure you've seen it, Maggie and Tim, or everybody has. But on the busier roads, if somebody violates the rules and puts a bunch of stuff out there, it creates a problem for everybody driving by and the community as a whole. And so we need to implement some way to deal with it, but that the offender would just have to pay for it.
Now those are the big, I think the big changes. The one other thing, if let's say let's take an apartment complex, and we don't have a lot of those in town, but the ones we do have that have dumpsters, we want those, maybe the landlord or whoever, to take care of their own. I guess we don't feel like we're not paying for them. We're not paying their dumpster service. They pay for that themselves. That they need to be hauling off their own bulky items. That's what we have written in here. So if someone gets evicted and they put all their stuff out, then I think in the past they've expected the town to come by and get that.
And what about if we charge for it?
That is another option that we currently don't do.
Yeah, I'm sort of curious what the rest of the board thinks, but I'm almost still in favor of keeping things looking decent. But in that case, just saying, you'll have to pay for it.
I think Josh's problem and James' problem is you start adding more manpower you need.
Yeah. If you can't do that, then that's okay. I understand it, but there's some, like for the apartment owners and so forth. But if you can't get to it because you don't have the personnel, then we just can't.
Yeah. I know we talked about that going through it. We put it together, and there may be work that needs to be done as we go through it. I mean, we've never done trash before, so we put together a budget and the number of personnel and to see where that gets us. And if we get behind, then we'll have to just come back and address it. I mean, I don't know any other way to handle it.
I think that's fair enough.
I think there's no doubt that we're going to do a better job than what's been being done. We're going to have some hiccups and some problems that we'll have to adjust and redo. Absolutely. But I know beyond a shadow of a doubt we'll be able to do this better than what we've had to experience in the last couple of years.
And I think we also have to be reminded, and I think this is correct, isn't it, that that Waste Pro they were changing the rules too. Had we renewed the contract with them, it wasn't the same set of rules as far as pickup and everything else. They were getting ready to go to the one big can, weren't they?
No, that was definitely a discussion. I think there was a couple different price points with that too.
But it would have happened. I mean, they did it in the county. If they did it countywide, they'd do it in Black Mountain. And so the paradigm was changing. You know, and we do need to remind the public of that. It was not going to be the same going forward, period.
And Josh, how much a year was that going to be extra if we had?
If I remember correctly, one of their proposals was a little over $900,000 a year, and then the other proposal was about 1.2 million, I think.
In addition.
Well, that would have been one contract was 900,000 maybe to keep it the same way and then doing something different, or maybe I have that reversed. But
is that 900,000 the total?
Yes.
Or an addition? Okay.
That's total.
Yeah, with the current level of service, we continued was the 1.2 million.
Yeah.
Which is how much higher than the last one?
How much higher than the last one? I think the last one, I'm going to probably get my numbers wrong here, but it was probably, I would say, close to $500,000 higher for that 1.2.
Yeah. Good. All right. Any more discussion?
Well, back to Marilyn's comments. What were her comments about? Hers were regarding recyclable items?
Hers regarding the definition for household garbage.
Household garbage.
Let's see.
Well, it's not recyclable.
So the current definition is any waste generated at a household, single-family or multifamily residence subject to putrefaction and originating within a residential establishment. I think she was just referring to putrefaction, where such things don't degrade or break down like aluminum foil and plastic, I think is what she was referring to.
So she wants to include those in.
Yes.
And that could best be addressed by being non-recyclable material rather than list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just add that.
And then I do have one more thing. If the landfill charges $10 a piece to dispose of televisions, we would like to pass that on as well to the customer. So if I take a TV out there myself, because you can't throw a TV away, then they charge you $10 a piece for a TV, and that goes to a separate section of the landfill that takes electronics and things like that.
So how would you collect that?
Good question.
Well, we have it written. The way we have it written now is that this fee is based on the landfill's fee. Of course, its schedule is subject to change, but payments can be made at the Public Works office. So if they want a TV picked up, they would just come down to Public Works, pay it. What we would probably do is load everything up on a truck and take the TVs to the landfill, separate from garbage, of course.
Are they geared up to do a building down there and keep track of the money and
I
stuff?
think they'd be fine.
Because by the time you do, what were we talking about? If you had to pay, if we do implement it where you need to pay for excess over all the stuff to pay, they need to be. Do they handle any money down there now?
Well, Parks and Rec does.
Parks and Rec does. They're in the
And
same building.
it's in the same building.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be too hard to figure that one out.
Yeah,
down
like
there.
it's hard to
Yeah.
kind of get that in order and so forth, that kind of thing. Because it's just obviously just a little bit different, collecting money, keeping track of it. But also the billing and everything too. I mean, but what you're saying is, it would just be pay up front. So you get the
Correct.
money and it's, still gonna have to keep some records though.
Yes. We will.
But I think it's necessary. I don't know how you can get around it.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, and of course, we're keeping the programs in there that we have now, where we have the assisted leaf collection, of course, and the back door service for folks that can't, handicapped folks or elderly folks, which is, I think, what Waste Pro has now. But we're going to do the same thing. So if someone has an issue and they can't get the trash out to the road, then we do get it for them. Currently, that's what Waste Pro does. And from staff, I think we're fine with continuing to do that.
So, what is it we've said about, we made some changes to household garbage and
We've talked about paying an overage if I've got too many cans of trash out and too much yard waste.
And then an extra fee for if a bulky item is not good enough once a month, you need to pay $25 per item extra.
but do you think it's wise to, if we're comfortable, I don't mind. If we're comfortable moving forward, or would it be better to let Ron make the changes and to think it through and bring it back next month? I'm just
I guess
asking for everybody's.
The question is what monetary value are you comfortable putting on overages in trash or overages in brush? I guess is the question. Is that something we need to think about? Or
I'm curious what other communities might do. Because I'd have to think other communities you about have to deal with it in that way. I don't know how you avoid it.
With the same charge for the excess pickup of, bulk items, would that be a reasonable charge to put on the excess leaf pickup too? Or is it more time consuming?
yeah, and then it depends on how big the pile is. If we're gonna limit it if you limit it to 4 and then say, well, if you do 8, then we're gonna charge you X amount of dollars, that's probably gonna be a better question answered by Jamie and Tasha than me.
Could we ask Jamie real quick?
Yeah.
Like, is it like a per yard charge? Would that make more sense?
So what we're discussing, Jamie, is the potential of if someone, instead of just limiting, let's say we limit trash to 6 bags of trash, if someone wants to put out more trash, then we're talking about charging them more money, charging them a fee for more trash, or charging them a fee for more brush instead of 4 cubic yards.
Okay.
And Jennifer just asked, and we're trying to go around to see what that fee looks like, what it would be, and I can't answer how long it takes you guys or them, because you don't know, I guess.
Right. Well, I think the whole purpose of reducing the amounts was because of manpower and time. So, the 8 cubic yards is about the size of the vehicle you drive right now, which is takes a lot of time to pick up. But as far as the charge or the fee to pick up extra, that would just have to be something we would have to research to see if other towns are doing it. That's sort of the way we come up with some of these policies is through other towns. We took some from Waste Pro and just put it together what we thought would fit us. I think Josh hit the nail on the head a while ago. There'll be some bugs we'll have to work out through this year, I'm sure. But the main concern to me now is just the limitations on some of this stuff where it's out of control. The 6 bags, we even thought about 6 bags or 2 cans. Because some people just don't put it out in bags. Where, depending on what size can you got, I think me and my wife ourselves goes through a lot of trash, but usually I don't have but a maximum of 2 bags, maybe a week. But when you get out here and see 15, 16 bags, it almost makes you wonder if it ain't coming in from somewhere else. And just like the landscaper, you know, you don't know that they may be down here in Swannanoa doing landscape work for somebody else, and then coming up here and doing that work, and then leaving what they done in Swannanoa on that site because they know it's free pickup here. So I know that happens sometimes. That's been, because when somebody calls and says, "Hey, we got X amount of brush," and I go up there and it's a pile of bamboo, but there's no bamboo on their property, or pine, or you know, it just don't add up. But as far as the charges, that would just be something we would have to look into and see if anybody else is doing that. My only concern would just be going back around because of the time consumption of it. You know.
So we could pass the ordinance tonight with the changes, you know, a couple of those changes that Maryland's change and 1 or 2 others we made there. But as far as charging additional, maybe we could come up with some wording that the town reserves the right, just to put the notice out there. I've come up with some, but reserves the right to charge for excess violations of the limits that we placed on any pickup item or something like that. And at least it sends a warning that we just can't let that happen.
I think Josh's biggest interest right now is that the bulk of this, he knows it's going to fly so that he can start educating the public.
Yeah.
And you can either put the, indicate that this meeting will just be continued for final vote next month, and with Josh knowing the bulk of what's going to be approved, and letting people know there will be a charge, and that's what the town's working on. Or you can adopt the ordinance as is, and we can amend it next month. I think that's fine. I think
it's fine.
Like if I could just speak one more time, like some of these bulk item stuff, just this past week, me and Tasha had went to residents and looked, and you know, you could pick apart what bulk item is because of furniture and things of that nature, but when you got a pile of picture frames, and I'm not joking, I'm not making this up, as long as this table and that high, and they just throwed them out on the side of the road, it'd take 2 people 30 minutes to 45 minutes, hard as they could go, just to load that stuff up, to where if you got that, you know, if they got that much extra and you charge $25 an item, that's going to hit them in the pocketbook pretty hard. But basically, you got 1,000 stops a day. You don't got time to be hung up for an hour on one stop. I mean, it was ridiculous. I've never seen as many picture frames in my life.
Well, I'm fine with passing it as is, with the changes to household garbage.
And I think that's the only one we really put in. I didn't even remember the $10 for TVs is in there.
It's already in there.
It's in there. Okay.
So I'd make a motion to approve it with the change to definition of household garbage, and but I do think, and so I'd make that motion.
Okay. We have a motion. All in favor? Roll call.
Maggie Tuttle, aye.
Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Passes 5-0.
I think those problems are just, some we'll have to resolve as we go through them and maybe figure out. I think there's some work to be done there, because it'll happen. Know how we're going to deal with it.
Josh, do you think you can get back to us next month with giving you enough time to research what other municipalities are doing, bulk items and brush pickup and whatnot? Okay.
Be happy to.
Okay, Josh. Next.
Thank you.
Next item, 8B, this would be designating the Riverwalk Greenway in honor of former Alderman Carlos Showers. This would be from the section of Greenway that would begin at Oldies or US 70, underneath the railroad, and I guess at least this section ending at NC 9, even though the Riverwalk will go all the way to Veterans Park. But this section, kind of in the middle of town, would be the one for naming for Alderman Showers. This did go before the Greenway Commission. They liked the idea, however, they thought that giving it another name would be confusing to folks. I think, it's Riverwalk Greenway. Part of that is going to be Fauna Flora State Trail. Part of it may be the Hellbender Trail. I know that's got some traction. And with another name, I think they thought there might be some confusion. So I think they made some suggestions of potentially naming a bridge or something after Carlos Showers, something along those lines. But that's the response from the Greenway Commission when it was taken to them.
Well, I think that's a short enough section already to go from 70 to number 9. Carlos is the longest serving alderman, African American, that we've ever had in this town, and longest serving in recent, since anybody's on this board served. He served longer than I have, and Maggie has, by 2 years. And the content of his character was above reproach. He was an excellent human being. He cared about this town. He worked his fanny off, staying on and communicating with folks on the different social media sites. Nobody was more accessible than what Carlos was. And the way in which Carlos passed means more to me than anything that about the man that I can say. On his deathbed, he forgave anybody and everybody that had had issues with, some of them on this board. And he had nothing against anyone. He was, he left out of here the way I hope we all can. And I just think it's the right and honorable thing to do to name that small section the Carlos Showers Riverwalk Greenway.
Agreed.
And I certainly agree with what the mayor and Jennifer have said. And I will also absolutely agree with Carlos's character being above reproach and the outstanding service he did for this community along with his family. I just think that given the current climate and the actions of the Black Lives Matter movement and all the unrest that's going on in this nation, that perhaps the gesture of just the Greenway is not large enough to encompass both that and his contributions to this community. I've thought about it a lot. I've thought about what Carlos advocated, and I thought a lot about our budget meetings. And Carlos was always an advocate for recreation and for public employees. And no one would argue more for improvements to the public safety building than Carlos. And so the 3 options that I came up with that I think would be a fitting legacy for Carlos would be, 1, if we renamed Vance Avenue. The legacy of Governor and Senator Vance has been well documented at this point, and the thoughts of that time period no longer reflect the thoughts of our community. And replacing that with Carlos Showers would be a lasting imprint on this town for the value we place on what the African American community provides here. The other options I thought about are yet to be named Public Works Building. I thought as the Carlos Showers Center, encompassing both our recreation department and also housing public works, combining in with his recreation and love for the town employees. And last, I thought, because he was such an advocate for the fire department and police department, renaming the public safety building in honor of Carlos Showers. So those are just my thoughts in thinking of it. And I think all three of those downtown in prominent locations would be a fitting tribute to his service.
Well, I can't say anything negative about any one of those suggestions. But I think the Greenway through the section of main part of town would mean more to him, and I can't speak for him, neither can anybody else, would mean more to him than anything we could do. Because that's going to be a lasting legacy, and that's going to be, in the future, the Greenway system is going to be one of the finest additions that we've ever had in this town. That we can eventually walk from Montreat all the way to Ingles Warehouse and beyond, hopefully. And that little small section right there, I think he'd be greatly honored. And I know this, he helped us save money on just one vote, for example. He saved this town $445,000. And we've put $350,000 of our tax money into greenways. And I can't say that on one hand that's where the money came from, but I can say this, it'd been a whole lot tougher to put the $350 there for the greenways than it would be if we'd had to spend that $450,000. Any other discussion?
I would like to clarify, so when it comes to renaming a street, do the residents of the street have to nominate? Do they have to start that process?
I'm going to look a little bit over here at the town attorney. I cannot answer that question.
I don't think there's any law in place that says that, no.
So the town could potentially rename a street?
Certainly.
They could, but you got to understand this, it's not just a simple naming of a street.
Because everything has to change, the 911, the addresses.
The addresses,
all
the
that.
checkbooks, everybody, where they get their bills, they all have to change. And it's a burden on the people that live on Vance Avenue. And yes, I know, I've heard from one of them that'd be willing to do that. I've heard from others say, why do we want to change? Why make me have to go through that? This is something by doing the Greenway it's already, we have the ability to do it now without changing anything.
I'm for the Greenway being changed to the Carly Showers Riverwalk. I'm just curious as to, would it be out of the realm of possibility to rename a street as well? But I also am curious as to how the residents of Vance Avenue feel about that.
I had spoken with a resident on Vance Avenue who'd made a suggestion for a name change, and I had advised her that it would be a good idea to talk to all the folks that live on that street to get their input.
I guess that's what I'm curious about, is how the residents of Vance Avenue feel about a potential street name change, but going forward, definitely changing the Riverwalk.
I also think about this Greenway as a connector from one side of town to the other. And if anybody was a connector, Carlos
It was
was that.
Carlos.
That's the word that comes in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
They're all good suggestions.
Yes,
but
they are.
This one came, Don had this put on the agenda and thought it through, and they're all good recommendations, but I'm certainly fine with this one, and I would make a motion that we designate Riverwalk Greenway in honor of former Alderman Carlos Showers.
All right, we have a motion. Roll call vote, please.
Maggie Tuttle, aye.
Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
Ryan Stone, even though I still don't think it's sufficient,
Passes 5-0. Well, there's one thing about it, we can do more. This is just a start.
Absolutely.
All right. Josh,
All right.
on Dad's seat.
Our update. I'm going to attempt not to lose you in this, but also try to be cognizant of time and not go into lots of details. because this project has been going on for a number of years, much longer than I've been around. But back in 2002, it was a priority that came out of our Greenway Master Plan that was developed. I think the important thing to realize with this type of project, because we are utilizing surface transportation money, which it comes from the federal government, which is federal highway money. These types of projects, when you go under a surface transportation funding, historically those have been used for highways. So the process is tedious and long, and you have to do things in order. You have to do all of your engineering before you can ever go to buying 1 inch of right-of-way. Then you have to do all of your right-of-way before you can ever stick a shovel in the ground. So they have that set up for a reason, and you have to follow that. If you don't follow it, then they don't reimburse you the funding. So you would go out on your own and do it if you didn't follow what their requirements are. Any of the board or any of the folks that have dealt with federal government, it can be time consuming. When you're dealing with DOT, that's time consuming, and the railroad probably tops all of those with time consuming. But from my records going back to around 2014, the town spent $35,000 on a hydraulic capacity study to see if it was feasible to go under Highway 70 and NC9. All right, we determined it was feasible. DOT said, too bad, we're not letting you do it. And that was the story from them for quite some time. Now, they did allow us to go under Highway 70 after some back and forth. And I don't mean a phone call back and forth, I mean months of conversations. This is just how it goes. Also in 2014 is when we first got approved money through the MPO under STPDA, which is Surface Transportation money. We got $50,000 for design and $100,000 for right-of-way. That was the first funding we got from them, $150,000. At that point, I was here as planning director. We took off and started doing some preliminary engineering. In 2015, that's when we first started allocating our match money, $80,000 from our general fund to a capital project fund, Riverwalk Capital Project Fund, excuse me. Every year since 2015, we've allocated $80,000, except this past year, due to COVID, we only did $50,000. Currently, we have $350,000 allocated in that capital project fund. With that, we also have, and I'm skipping a little bit ahead, but since we're talking about that, we also received some money from Buncombe County, $400,000 to go for Riverwalk Greenway. So that brings us to $750,000 of our total $1.2 million match money. Okay, we have to pay 20% of the total cost. Total cost is about $6 million for this Greenway project. You might say that's a lot of money for a couple miles of Greenway. It is a lot of money. But the thing that's important, and I think folks may not think about, is we're going under 2 major state highways, and we're going under a railroad. And the engineering and design and construction for those 3 crossings will be expensive, which is why we're at that $6 million mark. 2016, we really got into the design, starting to design then. That took 18 months to do that design. And that's back and forth with DOT, that's back and forth with the railroad. We went to the railroad and tried to see if there was another option instead of putting our own tunnel in underneath Norfolk Southern, trying to use the existing, I'm losing that term right now. Trestle, that's it. Trying to go under the existing trestle. They would have none of it. They said, you're going to do a tunnel or you're not going to get across. That's the only way we're going to allow to do that. That took 12 months to get that response back from the railroad. That's just how long it takes. It doesn't matter how many times you call them, they are on their own time. Also in 2017, we took a little pause because I left and you got a new planning director. So that stifled it a little bit. 2016, let me go back. That is when we got our first big chunk of money from the MPO under STPDA funds. $2 million is what we got back in 2016. Move up to 2018. We expanded the scope of that project. So that original Riverwalk application we submitted was only from US 70 to NC 9. 2018, we added the section in from Hampton Inn to Veterans Park. or to in the Oaks there at Vance Avenue. As you can imagine, when you're adding things into a project of this magnitude, it takes time to add that in, to get approvals from DOT, to get approvals from all the folks that are involved. We also got to do, to an extent, an environmental impact analysis, which was under this section we get something called a categorical exclusion. I don't want to bore you with those details, but if you do a full-blown EIA or environmental impact assessment, those can take anywhere from a year to 2 years to 3 years, depending on what you find and what you impact. We are actually now under the categorical exclusion, so that's a good thing. 2018, the MPO approved $1.8 million in funding. 2018. That's when we awarded the contract for design to Michael Baker. Back when we first started, we were using Equinox for a lot of the public outreach, some of the back and forth of landscape architecture, and Michael Baker was kind of a subcontractor of Equinox on that first contract. Equinox got out of it, and everything went to Michael Baker to do the full-blown engineering of this project. 2019, a lot of behind-the-scenes work, and there's behind-the-scenes work that nobody sees or nobody knows about that goes on monthly for this project, keeping up with things, talking back and forth with DOT, making sure this is a locally administered project, making sure we're following all our rules. I mean, you got audits that you go over. I mean, whenever the engineer submits to you a scope, it goes back and forth between the town and NCDOT for months, and they have to agree on pricing. If the engineer is charging too much money, NCDOT won't pay for it. They will make them reduce that fee. That took 6 months to go back and forward with pricing with DOT. I'm just trying to give you a magnitude of these types of projects take a long time to do because they're federally funded projects. If they were from other sources and grant funds, it would be much less complicated, but you more than likely wouldn't get the good amount of return that we're getting, whereas the state and federal highway is paying 80% and we're only paying 20%. We got, if you recall, a few months ago, maybe longer than that now, we approved the alignment from Hampton Inn to the In the Oaks Trail. I know I brought that before you. It was expensive to go along the river. We had a property owner that was not willing to negotiate, didn't want us to have an easement at all. That kind of stopped that in its tracks. So we backed up, and that's when the board agreed to use Terry Estates and Vance Avenue to make sure that this section got completed. So now that alignment is done, and that is being engineered as we speak. We also got an easement from Swannanoa Valley Christian Friends of Swannanoa Valley. I think it's Christian Friends. Anyway, we did some string bank work for them in exchange for the easement. We did that recently. I think that string bank work just got finished. Little side note, the gentleman that was doing the work when we had that big flooding event, his track hoe was in the middle of the river because it had washed off the bank, so he had to come get that out. But anyway, we have met with numerous people to talk about easements, knowing that we're going to need those at some point and even have them sign letters of intent. We've spoken with Whatever Rents. I've had numerous conversations with Billy Wells about that. He's on board. He's happy to give us an easement. Jessica and I met with the folks that own the large tract of property that backs up in behind Bilo. They seem to be on board. We showed them the maps, met them probably 2 weeks ago out there and looked at them. So there is a lot of behind the scenes work that goes on that you may not necessarily know about. So that's what I'm just trying to bring kind of forward to you. Now this year in 2020, we did apply for some Part F funding, some more funding for the Greenway, $250,000. We're able to use some of our existing funding to match that money. So I don't know how that grant application is going to shake out, but if we continue to be lucky like we have been lately, then maybe we'll get that $250,000. And we did receive notification that you're all aware of this, I guess the past couple of months, or at least the past month, that once we get to 60% design, that we have to submit at 30%, 60%, and 90% to DOT. We're currently right at 60%. We'll submit that to DOT, and then we're frozen until they figure out their budget issues. And that's across the state with lots of projects. So hopefully that won't be a long lull, and we'll be able to get back on that. We currently have $4.8 million programmed into the state transportation improvement plan. We are waiting this fall to have the last $1.2 million programmed. We feel very confident that's going to happen. I think the MPO board votes on that this week, if I'm not mistaken, on August 13th. And that is a quick version of where we began and where we are.
Okay, Josh, thank you. Alrighty. Public hearing.
So she's going to get to Jessica so she can go through this public hearing, and I spoke with Attorney Sneed. If we do have, since it's a public hearing, if we do have folks that comment on Zoom, we will read those out during our public hearing.
It's really nice to see all of you after such a long time in the flesh. So tonight we're talking about a stream buffer ordinance that has been something we've been thinking about for a while in our department. Stream buffers naturally hold banks of streams and rivers and create riparian zones which help reduce sedimentation, erosion control, and to some extent localized flooding. The roots from the trees and plants, it help naturally slow the water so it can infiltrate at a more natural speed. So this ordinance that you are reviewing was drafted by the Environmental Protection Agency and has been widely adopted and used across North Carolina. I do want to say it's a starting point. We can always revisit this if we feel like it doesn't quite achieve what we want it to do, but I do think it's a good starting point. Stream buffers that are already stream buffers that are already required for projects which require a Phase 2 stormwater permit only capture a few projects per year, maybe about 10. So we feel like this fills in a gap in our development procedures in town to help us continue to work on our stormwater issues. To be honest, it's not very often that somebody comes to us with a set of plans that says we want to build a house on the water. It's sheds that often want to be placed in very close proximity to water and intrude into that riparian zone. This ordinance does not impact existing development. So if you have property or development in proximity to these streams, creeks, or it's fine. There's no buffers created there. This applies only to new development, and it creates a 30-foot buffer and a 20-foot transition area. And these streams are identified on the USGS maps. It's not necessarily every stream or ditch you see in town. The land in the buffer area is able to be included in the total square footage of the lot, so it doesn't take away anything from anybody in that respect. The width of the buffer area and the transition area may be reduced to 15 feet each in certain low impact situations which meet the following criteria. It's a 1 or 2 family dwelling, the lot is no greater than 1 acre, and the amount of impervious surface on the lot is 25% or less than 3,000 square feet, whichever one is greater. So that's to say that the buffer and transition area will often be able to be reduced to a total of 30 feet because these are the types of developments we often see come through our department. I think this ordinance also really formalizes and bolsters many good housekeeping behaviors we already see many people observe during the construction process, such as silt fencing within 50 feet of a blue line stream. People are certainly allowed to remove plants and trees that have fallen into their streams, and as long as other uses follow the land use code, it can also be used for street crossings, driveways, culverts, recreational features, intakes, utilities, and bridges and other facilities. And buffers can also be used for recreation activities like trails, like our lovely greenway. Clearing and replanting of the buffer can be achieved and is supported when the outcome has greater benefit than how it started, if you're making an improvement. Stormwater controls and temporary erosion structures are also allowed in the buffer. Essentially, is when you're done putting it in, you put it back the way you found it. Put the dirt back, put the grass back. Streams that have been piped and presumably have been piped according to the blessing of the Army Corps of Engineers are not subject to this ordinance. You can still engage in invasive species management and control. View corridors can be created and maintained as long as they maintain the integrity of the soil and the underbrush. And if you create a ditch or any sort of man-made conveyance approaching a water course, as you approach that buffer zone, we want to see it diffuse. So it spreads out and the water slows down before it makes its way to the creek. I do want to note that went down a little bit of a little rabbit trail regarding some of the language in here that I think is confusing from the federal government and the state government, and I would like to propose some slightly different language. In section 384D8, I'd like to propose that language be changed to that no herbicide and or pesticides and no application of herbicides or pesticides labeled as harmful to aquatic life would be used in the buffer. In North Carolina, the label on pesticides and herbicides control the application of that product. So in short, if you were trying to kill an insect that is eating your crops, but it is not indicated that it would hurt aquatic life, then it would not be an issue.
So that's D8?
Yes, sir.
And read that again, what you wanted to say.
No storage of herbicides and or pesticides and no application of herbicides and or pesticides labeled harmful to aquatic life. That is basically straight from the North Carolina Administrative Code. And my notes are almost as long as the ordinance, and I'm sorry for all of that, but it was very detailed. Do we have any questions?
Speaking to the mic when you're talking, you're good. Where's Jennifer in that room? Jennifer? No comments? Okay.
So, this is not time for us to ask questions, is it?
It is.
Is it? So remind me again how many situations we have that come up with building on the average that you see where you have creek bank running through it?
We often see development, incidental residential projects like sheds, outbuildings, and those sorts of things. Those are the ones we most typically see that are put right in a stream area, and a lot of the times it's because you may have some slope and or maybe it's the natural flat spot. Don't often see it with residential structures, except up in the settings occasionally, because they have some issues with their setbacks in a lot of streams. But also, I just want to remind that it does not apply to every stream, only if it's identified as a blue line stream, which is not every stream.
The blue line streams are designated blue line streams by
the USGS
survey. So a blue line stream is a body of concentrated flowing water in a natural low or natural channel on the land surface that may be a creek, stream, or other flowing water feature, perennial or ephemeral, and it's indicated on that USGS logical survey. And it is not a man-made water course, so that's not included.
Streams on the golf course, blue lines?
More than likely, yes.
Yes, they are.
Those are good sized streams.
More than
Yeah.
likely, yes.
Now, I don't know that creates a problem because we're talking structures and we're taking care of our stream banks anyway, but that's...
Any structure that's there is not going to be an issue. We're not going to be creating buffers in areas that are already developed. It's new things.
And bridges aren't an issue anyway.
They're not.
Or greenways for that matter.
Nope.
Any other questions? I feel like the rest of the board does. It's time, and this is an issue and a problem. It's only going to get worse, and we need to put some parameters on it.
If this doesn't do the job, we'll figure it out.
Thank you for your work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, motion to approve the text amendment to adopt stream buffer, the draft ordinance O-220-08.
So moved.
Roll call vote.
Maggie Tuttle, aye. Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
Ryan Stone, aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Communication staff, Ron?
I got something tonight. We own the Hemphill property.
Yes, sir.
Finally. There is money that's set aside, but that's not going to be immediate. They've got a lot of things within the estate to wrap up, allocate some costs. But the money hasn't all been spent, so it's there. But hopefully over the course of the next month or two, they'll work their way through that, and we'll get some funding. And then we can start planning. But it is ours. The deed is recorded.
That's approximately how many acres again?
26.
Yep.
Roughly.
That will be added to the town, future recreation, as a recreation facility. So that's wonderful news.
That's moving. Got a second one that problem that hasn't moved. Watson property. Months ago, this board authorized me to move forward, start taking the steps where we might reach and we condemn it, we tear it down and file a lien. Then the wind blew it down. That was convenient. And he cleaned up rather quickly. And I was hoping he would continue the process. And although he did clean up, we still got part of the building standing. And all I need tonight is, do I pick up where I left off at that point, move forward toward condemnation, get the notices that need to go out, and then be next month I come back to you to authorize the step of demolition. You just want me to pick up where we left off and go through that, proceed through that process.
Do you need that form of vote?
No, I just need the direction, because it was in motion and halted when the wind blew it down. We hoped he'd finish cleaning it up.
I would say we need to, my thinking is we probably need to proceed. We've left off.
Okay. Potentially, I'm going to spend a little of the town's money if we end up going all the way to demolition. The good news is there's only 1/10 of what we had to start with to demolish. The cost went down.
Well, just to be reminded, the folks at Highland Farms who it impacts, they just drive in and out of there, buy it more often. It's been high on the agenda with that community for a long time. And so I don't disagree with them. It's been a difficult, and it's something that the town board has to deal with from time to time, but I think we have to move forward with it.
I just need to know if the board wanted to go forward or if they were comfortable with where it's left at this point. Apparently not. Okay. That's all I have.
All right, I got just a few things here. Let's see. I think I wanted, I already let you know this, but just for the public's information, we put together a grant package. I guess it was last summer. We were notified by Landescata that there was some money available for due to the North Carolina Volkswagen settlement money for diesel vehicles. We did put in a grant for 3 dump trucks and a couple of fire trucks. We ended up getting funded for 2 dump truck replacements, which is really good. We've got around 3 dump trucks that need to be replaced, but 2 of them are going to be replaced, and they're very dated, early 2000 models, probably weren't the correct models. We got $169,000 from the settlement, so we will, as soon as we get more details, we'll go forward with getting those replaced. So I was excited to hear about that. The 19th hole, it seems to be going good. See Karen usually every day. I go over there usually every morning and talk to the golf guys, and just checking in with Karen to see how it's going with doing. She's painting and doing some things and sprucing it up. So I think it's going to look much different than the last time you were there. But I was over there today, and it's amazing what a fresh coat of paint will do. But, so that's underway. Her goal is to be open August 23rd. So I think she's waiting to hear back from ABC, Alcoholic Beverage Commission right now. Some not so good news with that flooding. We had some issues with a cart bridge on the golf course. We do have a temporary bridge in place now. It's not permanent. So we've had some folks look at that bridge, and more than likely, we're bringing you a budget amendment at some point, probably next month, but probably around $20,000 to fix this bridge. So it's not usable. It's very compromised at this point for those that have seen it. And then the last thing, I did speak with the mayor about this a little bit. Back when we first declared a state of emergency, we pretty much waived and suspended like late payments and penalties for folks with utilities and paying their water bills. Well, that executive order from the governor has ended at the end of July 29th. So at this point, we need some direction, I guess, from the mayor. I've talked to Don about it, but I wanted to kind of bring you up to speed on it. We haven't charged late fees, we haven't charged penalties. Currently, we have about 460 accounts that are past due, and that's about $55,000 worth of water fees that we haven't collected, and that was at the end of July, 7/30. At this point, we have the ability, I think if we may need to make some changes to our language on our website about that executive order, because technically we're still under that, and we've got specific language about the late fees and the non-cutoffs. But right now, we could go ahead and start cutting people off. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. That is something we could do. Something else that we need to do for folks is to offer them a payment plan. And this is, everybody's doing this across the state, is offering these types of payment plans for people to try and get back on track. So, really this is kind of information. Think about it. We can put something together and come back to you next month in September, maybe make more of a formal decision. We just wanted to bring this to your attention to let you know kind of where we stood on those past two accounts right now. And that's it for me.
Any comments from the Alderman? All right, hearing none, I'd like to give you a little recap where this board has been over the almost 9 years ago. I ran for the board with only 3 things that I said I was going to accomplish. One was restore civility to this board. Only folks that were on that board was Maggie and myself, and it was something, the civility on this board was not something this town should have been proud of. That is completely turned around. I ran on reducing the debt, increasing fund balance. Our finances with the town is between the capital reserve, general fund, and unassigned fund balance. The amount the town has is $1,592,000 more. The debt is down even after purchasing the public works building for $2 million. That debt is down $1,228,000. But what that public works building gives us is an opportunity to do our own sanitation and garbage service. And the numbers I'm looking at, the information I'm getting from Josh, with what the new contractor is going to be, is going to save us about $300,000 a year as far as tax money versus what the new garbage contractor is going to be. We've had a tax rate reduction of 4.25 per 100, and that was after the county had increased their tax evaluations, and we did that to where our residents would still only, it was to keep tax revenue neutral. The board denied a request for $445,000 to develop the town square. We worked with the steering committee to raise $700,000 in non-Black Mountain taxpayer funds through donation of labor, material, gifts in kind, resulting in a $1,145,000 swing. Regarding the water infrastructure, the water insecurities of the town have been strengthened by the system development fees that we started. in which we currently have $250,000, and that will continue to grow. We've added a pump station, which costs $750,000, which is paid for by grant money. Our agreement with the city of Asheville takes care of the water needs for this town and is secure for decades. The town has $6 million in grant funding for work on our greenways. The $6 million comes with a 20% match, of which we already have $750,000 in reserve, which will take care of most of the $4 million, first $4 million. We have set up to raise the additional funds in the capital reserve program. The board has run the town business the right way by steady, forward thinking, and planning without knee-jerk reactions. We've worked with county commissioners to receive over $650,000 for use on community projects. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is we was 7-0 vote, unanimous. I want to thank the county commissioners for all they've done for our town and their leadership. Josh Harrold and the town administration, police, fire, public works, and recreation is the best that I have seen in my time on this board. They all serve the citizens of Black Mountain with pride, dedication, and respect. They no longer do things for special citizens. Everyone is treated equally, fairly, and in a responsible way. I myself, I've done everything that I promised to do. I'm proud of where we are as a town and what we've all done and what I committed to do. All the credit goes to the board for what we've done together, because it has been a team effort. It's been my honor and privilege to serve you these almost 9 years. And with that, I give you my retirement and resignation from this board immediately. Thank you, folks. And with that, I guess the Vice Mayor will get the gavel.
Wow, that's a big empty seat up there. And first of all, I want to thank Don for all his service and hard work. It's been a privilege and an honor for me to work with him this last 9 years. It's a big seat to fill. And I really feel like, and I think I'm okay doing this, I'm still an alderman, right? First, I would like to, considering this time of uncertainty in our world and in our town, and the short time between now and the election coming up in November, I would like to make a nomination that we fill this seat, since that's one of the things our charter says we can do. I would like to nominate Larry Harris to fill that seat for the next 2 years. Is there any discussion? Would you like to?
Madam Alderman Tim Raines, I'd like to second your nomination for Larry Harris to fill the mayor's seat for the remainder of his term. Larry has served the town faithfully as an alderman for the last 9 years, and he's also served as chairman of many boards and commissions in Buncombe County. He's well respected within the county, and I think that Larry will bring experience, fiscal leadership to the town and to this board.
Okay, are there any other comments? If not, then the nomination is on the floor. We'll have a roll call vote. I will start it. Maggie Tuttle, aye.
Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Larry Harris, aye.
So we're gonna do this tonight after the resignation. I would prefer to do this at the next meeting to have public input on this, since everyone was voting. But since you all have made that decision, I will vote no.
Okay. Then the motion passes. So Larry, I will turn this, I think that's done. So,
For votes, can I ask a procedural question, Ron?
Yes, please.
About the upcoming election and Larry's filing for the alderman seat?
Okay, you're inside of 90 days. That means Larry serves not to this election, but the next election.
Okay.
But that leaves his seat empty, and your seat's coming open, right?
Right, it is, and what I would like is for the town clerk to swear me in, and then I'll finish up the meeting.
Yeah, well, we're going to have a second step. We're going to have a vacant seat
Right.
for another next 90 days.
Well, no, we'll finish up the meeting,
Yeah.
and I think Jennifer wants to have the floor once I'm mayor, and we'll wrap up the meeting. And so, Jennifer, even though I guess I'm not the mayor till I'm sworn in,
That's correct.
but we could move along. And, well, here comes Savannah.
Can we do this go ahead and swear him in first?
Yeah.
Is that procedure okay?
There's no reason not to.
Yeah.
I'm going to thank everyone for this, but I'm going to call this an equal permit.
Alright, you want to come up here and swear him in? It's not my job. Leave your hands on camera.
Sign it afterwards.
You can sign it now, and then I'll sign it after. Otherwise, we're going to standard procedure here. I, Larry Harris,
I, Larry Harris,
do solemnly and sincerely swear
do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will support the Constitution laws of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States,
that I will be faithful and bear true
that I will be faithful and bear true
allegiance to the state of North Carolina
allegiance to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
and to the constitutional powers and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend
the Constitution and laws of said state,
the Constitution and laws of said state,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and abilities,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office
as mayor of the town of Black Mountain,
as mayor of the town of Black Mountain,
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Maggie, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to stay in your original seat?
Oh, this is fine, thank you. And so, before we adjourn the meeting, we will consider the seat that is now vacant after Don's resignation and my appointment as mayor. And I'd like to call on Jennifer Willett, who has asked for the floor at this point in time.
Thank you. This is Jennifer Willett. Since there is a vacant seat, and I know that we need all hands on deck during, this time, I would like to nominate Archie Tuttle to fill the vacant seat. Mr. Tuttle is a lifelong resident of Black Mountain. He has served on various boards, including the Swananoa Valley Montessori School. the Black Mountain Zoning Board and the State Employees Credit Union Advisory Board, which is where I collaborated with him for several years. Mr. Tuttle is community and civic minded. He has a willingness to build lasting relationships between the community and the board. I can't say enough good things about Mr. Tuttle. He strives for community connection and transparency, and I feel like he would be an asset to the board.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments regarding the appointment of Archie Tuttle to fill the remaining term of the seat that I vacated, which he would be if the board votes in favor of Mr. Tuttle, he would still stand for election in November. The only point I would like to make is that the last seat that we appointed pursuant to Alderman Shower's passing, we opened and had some discussion with the community, but that, and I think it's fair to say, is not necessary at this point because we have people who filed to run in November, and Archie being one of those. And actually, Archie has run for office before, and so certainly he has a desire to serve. And I think I certainly speak in favor of the nomination. So, Jennifer, would you like to make that motion?
I would like to make that nomination.
Great. So the motion is that Archie Tuttle be appointed to complete the remaining months of the term of my seat. And so, roll call vote. Maggie
Yeah.
Tuttle?
Yes, Maggie Tuttle, aye.
Jennifer Willett, aye.
Tim Raines, aye.
Very good. So the 3-0 vote.
Ryan's absence but being present for the meeting is deemed to be a vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sneed. So the vote is 4-0, which is unanimous. That's where we would stand. Great. Is there any, Mr. Sneed, town manager, anybody else?
Ron, I have you might know this, might not. Now, he's on the ballot Larry's on the ballot for Alderman. So, is this time to take his name off the...
I don't know if he can.
No. It has to be taken off before the filing deadline expires. So, if you filed on Wednesday, the filing deadline's over with on Friday. If you let them know on Thursday or Friday at 4 o'clock, I think you're okay. But once it's over, you're on the ballot. So my name will be on the ballot.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? If not, meeting adjourned.